Our story started pretty much the same. I was cruising through AliExpress and I thought to myself, what would be the cheapest graphics card that I can get? A couple of ground rules. The card has to be from a seller. That means no secondhand or marketplace listing. It can be a refurbished listing. It has to be the cheapest, and that includes shipping as well. So many listings on here are like $5, but the shipping is around $20, so they don't count. After a couple of hours of research, I found this listing. GT730 or GT610, 2GB low profile. Even the listing can't agree on the name. For about $12, this card seemed to be way more interesting over listing. Naturally, I had to order it. Let's see what we've got. The box is completely unbranded and just says graphics card, straight to the point. Inside the box, we've got the card itself, a metal bracket and some tiny screws. It goes in my experimental build with i3 Haswell series, 4GB of RAM and 128GB of SATA SSD. These do seem to be refurbished PCBs with their own casing. I checked the card through GPU-Z and there was no modification made to the firmware. For this card, I wouldn't expect it. Maybe from sketchy sellers for more expensive cards. Just because it's the cheapest graphics card doesn't mean I'm gonna take it easy on it. So after installing drivers, optimizing my potato, and installing the games, let's launch Resident Evil 4 Remake. And yup, it didn't work. Poor card is too old. Now we're gonna launch God of War 2018 and didn't work. Now we're gonna launch Tekken 7 and oh, it actually worked. Oh wow, let's get, and it crashed. You know, I'm gonna use the lowest settings possible and it's so much better now, and it crashed. Let's try another title. This is King of Fighters 15 and the Unreal Engine gave me errors. For modern titles, this card is not competent. I could apply some low settings patches, but that is out of the scope of this video. Instead, I wanted to test some lesser demanding games. So we're looking at titles from around a decade ago, or some forgiving titles from a couple of years ago. This is Devil May Cry 4 Special Edition from 2015, and playing it on normal settings, it is unplayable. A 9-year-old game is unplayable, and it plays, the game works, but I wouldn't recommend it. That's a bummer. But let's move on to the next game. I titled from 2014, Resident Evil 4 Remaster. On full settings, it doesn't crash, but it's also not playable. Turning the settings down helps a little, but not really. Up until this point, this card has been really crappy to say the least. Running the OG Resident Evil 4 works alright, but that's not much of an accomplishment. Let's switch gears here. What about emulation? Well, I'm glad you asked. Starting with the PS3 emulator RPCS3, things seem pretty normal. Around 30 FPS average in menu, but as soon as the match starts, the FPS takes a massive dip and stabilizes around 11 FPS. And this wasn't even a demanding title. Moving on to the Switch emulation and not seeing the obvious, let's launch Red Dead Redemption. And it crashed. Huh, I'm starting to see a pattern here. What about a lighter title? Mario Kart 8 Deluxe? Oh, it actually works. Let's just and it crashed. Okay, one last game. Metal Slug X, and this one plays really well. So if you want to emulate arcade archives, you might be able to do so. We have one last emulator to benchmark and running the most demanding game on the PS2, Tekken Tag Tournament, and it's actually playable with a lot of compromise though. And lastly, Dragon Ball Budokai 3, which runs at acceptable frame rates. Okay guys, I'm ready to reach a conclusion here. As cheap as this card is, it's not worth it. The only positive that I can give this card is if your work is lightweight and doesn't involve gaming or editing, then yeah. But for gaming, no. I mean, you can't even run a decade-old games on here, which makes sense given the actual age of this card. Your best option if you're on a tight budget is to look at Facebook Marketplace or eBay. For around $100, you can get a 1060 Ti or a 1070, which is a much better deal. And speaking of the 1060 Ti, that's gonna be the next video in the series. We're gonna put the legendary card through its paces. Thanks for the support guys. Please like this video and subscribe to the channel because
I'm so pale.
And hey, let me know in the comments below if you like this project and what other projects should I do. With that being said, this is Rocat. I hope you guys enjoyed this perspective. Thank you so much for watching. Catch you guys later.